George H.W. Bush was the president that ran from 1989 to 1993. In fact, he's actually still alive to this day. But how did he get to be the president of the United States? Well, it all started when he was 18. He ditched his education to fight in the war as a pilot, making him the youngest Navy pilot at the time. Fun fact, he has also won a Distinguished Flyer Award for completing a mission in a burning plane. He went to being a congressman, to an ambassador, to vice president when Ronald Reagan was president, to eventually being the president himself. In my honest opinion, he was one of the greatest presidents of all time, mainly due to his foreign policies. But to see how great his foreign policies really were, you have to start with the weaker side first. Let's start with his domestic policies. First off, let's start with the thing that everyone remembers the most about him. During his 1988 campaign, he said his famous quote, "Read my lips. No new taxes."
Raise taxes and I'll say no, and they'll push and I'll say no, and they'll push again and I'll say to them, read my lips. No new taxes.
But in 1990, he found it a bit difficult to keep said promise. So, to keep the government afloat, he raised taxes. And at the time, the media ripped him apart for doing this, with headlines such as, "Read my lips, I lied." But, as I just said, he had to do it to America to keep the government afloat. In 1990, there was also Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA for short, which stated that companies cannot discriminate against Americans with disabilities, such as not hire them just because they have a disability. And finally, the Clean Air Act. Although this came out in 1970, when George H.W. Bush was obviously not president, he was involved in the 1990 amendments, which had a crucial act in improving the air quality of the United States. Now, let's get into his greatest strength, and what people remember him for, his foreign affairs. The reason why so many people remember H.W. Bush for his foreign policies was simple. He was the only recent president that specialized in foreign affairs. A good example of this is the Berlin Wall incident. In 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. A symbol of communism that has been around ever since 1961 finally came down. Now you would think that Bush would be ecstatic to hear this. Not really. When he heard about this, he said, "I'm very pleased." When he was questioned, he responded by stating, "I am not an emotional kind of guy. Looking back on it, this was a very good idea." Not saying anything about how the U.S. is superior to USSR avoided backlash by people who were leaning more to the left in Europe. Another reason people remember Bush 41 was because of START, or Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. He met up with Mikhail Gorbachev, the eighth and final leader of the Soviet Union, and signed this treaty. This limited both countries to possess 3,500 nuclear weapons. The final thing we're going to touch on for George H.W. Bush is Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait in 1990. When he didn't leave when he met the deadline, America responded with an air war that destroyed a lot of the Iraq defense. When ground troops came in, it was pretty much over. The war itself was a massive success, resulting in a few casualties and a devastatingly high amount of casualties on the other side. And the U.S. accomplished what it needed to accomplish, make Saddam leave. In conclusion, George H.W. Bush was a very good president, especially when you compare him to recent presidents like Clinton, W. Bush, his son by the way, Obama, and Trump. While those presidents are alright, they really don't compare to H.W. Bush, especially in foreign policies. I'd be happy to see us get another president like him down the line.